to bloom, change is not easy for any of us, especially when it comes to cooking and eating healthy foods. But our next guest says it doesn't have to be a bad thing. All it takes is desire, thought, intention, and taking small steps towards making changes. Joining us now is the author of The Power of Five Test Kitchen Cookbook, Melissa Bernstein, to walk us through it. Melissa, it's great to see you.
Thank you. It's great to see you as well. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So what are we going to be making today?
Before we start talking about what we're going to be making, I want to talk a little bit about change. And change is difficult, especially when you're eating, because eating is comfort food, and we feel good when we eat. But you do have to, with intention, choose the kinds of things that are good for you and good for your brain and good for your body for overall health and wellness.
And I think it's a good thing, too, that you talk about taking small steps.
Absolutely.
Because if it's too overwhelming, people simply won't stick with the change. And sticking with the change is what you're ultimately striving to do.
Consistency is really important. And, you know, getting a continuity and a partner, family members, getting them involved in what you're doing while you're cooking and while you're eating, and getting them to eat and cook the way you are planning on it, then it will really help the overall process and the overall success of you altering your cooking and your eating.
And I think a lot of times people don't want change when it comes to their diets is because they think that healthy foods are boring, bland, and they simply don't taste good. But I can promise you that's not the case.
No, it's not the case. But there's some things that you can do in the kitchen just to alter while you're cooking. You, instead of using butter, you could use olive oil. Now I go one step further and I use vegetable broth to saute with instead of oil. So that reduces the oil and the fats in my diet. So that's one thing I do. I also try and use fresh vegetables, whether frozen or fresh, instead of canned, because they're high in salt. So you have to watch what's in there, you know, in the cans, because sometimes they're very highly salted and they may have other additives in them as well. Excuse me. The other thing that we like to do is we can cook our beans fresh in an Instapot, or we can use beans from a box. I don't know if you've seen those.
Oh, I have. I use beans from the box all the time.
And they don't have any sugar, and they don't have any additives in them or any salt. So those are really, really great to use. So you can mix up what you're using and what you're choosing at the grocery store to make sure that there's no additives, preservatives, and that they're not processed. So those are the keys.
All right, those are great tips and swaps for us. So you say this is basically based on the popular Blue Zone theory.
It's called the Three Sister Salad.
Okay.
And why in the Blue Zones, and maybe Dan will talk about this tomorrow when you have him on, but in Costa Rica, it's how they're planted so that these three things, the squash, the corn, and the beans, are all planted in very close proximity, so that the soil is enriched by these plants being grown, and therefore it enriches the food that it grows. So that's what makes these superfoods, these three combination together, make a perfect protein.
That is fascinating, and I didn't think about it because my late great-grandmother and her daughter, my aunt, they would plant their foods together, and you forget to think about the power of the soil.
The soil is extremely important. So this Three Sister salad, there's Three Sister soups, there's all kinds of recipes out there that combine the right ingredients to provide a perfect meal.
Okay, so you're starting with what kind of lettuce?
Well, this is kind of my little additive to it. This is actually kale that's already been massaged.
Okay.
So you can use spinach, or you can use any other super greens as your base. So that was kind of something that I added, but the original recipe really is yellow squash, which is butternut squash.
Okay.
So I'm gonna pour that in. Let me grab this real quick.
Now, did you cook this squash?
I did. I sauteed the squash, but not overly cooked. You don't want to overcook it because then it'll get real mushy.
Okay.
And then just added a little bit of pepper. You can also add a little bit of hot pepper if you want to like spice it up a little bit, and also bring some extra benefit there. And then corn. I like to cook my corn, and then I like to cut it off the cob and mix it together. And saute it a little bit so it adds a little bit more flavor. And then I used black beans, but you can use other beans as well. But black beans is what we have today.
I love it.
Okay, and then I also add a little bit of onion to mine, some red onion. And then we kind of mix it up, and we can also add a little bit of lemon juice if you wish.
So this is in lieu of like some calorie-driven dressing you find on the aisle.
Exactly, all fresh, a teeny little bit of oil.
Okay.
I do a little bit of oil there.
Nothing wrong with a little high-quality oil.
That's right.
It's a good fat.
Yep, and that's an olive oil. And then I use a little bit of the vinegar.
Okay, is that
which is
balsamic?
balsamic vinegar, yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's balsamic. So we're going to take this and mix this up a little bit here.
So
look
that's
how
the salad.
beautiful.
That
this
is
is
beautiful.
The original salad. Look how gorgeous it is. Look
I
at
love
those
it.
colors. And then just to add more color and more fiber, that's why I layer it over either the kale, which we have here, or the spinach.
That looks
Isn't that
absolutely delicious.
lovely? So I'm going to put a little bit in your bowl.
All right, thanks, Melissa. See if there's a...
Is there a fork in there for you?
No, but I got my fingers. All right,
There
that
we
looks
go.
delicious.
There you go.
I'll have my lunch planned out for me today, everyone, the Three Sisters salad, and we're going to post this recipe on our website, bloomtampabay.com. Thank you so much
You're
for being
very
here.
welcome. You're very welcome.
We'll be back with more Bloom right after this.